There are moments when time itself feels different, when days carry more weight, when hours feel charged, when the spirit senses that something irreversible is approaching. This is one of those moments. The urgency of this hour is not created by calendars or dates. It is created by heaven's activity. When God marks time, it is never random. When he highlights a season, it is because movement is required. Before December 20, the atmosphere is charged with divine intent. Heaven is not rushing, but it is not lingering either. God is precise, and when he signals urgency, it is because delay has consequences. Too many people mistake patience for permission. Too many assume silence means approval. But this is not a silent season. This is a signaling season. I have learned that when God intensifies his voice, it is not because he is angry, but because distraction has increased. When God speaks urgently, it is not because he wants to alarm you, but because something ahead requires readiness. Urgency in the spirit is heaven's way of saying, pay attention now, because what comes next will not wait for you to catch up. This hour demands discernment, not emotional reactions, not surface level spirituality, discernment, the kind that reads beyond appearances and hears beyond noise, because everything loud is not important and everything important is not loud. God is speaking clearly, but only those who slow their spirit will hear him accurately. The danger of this moment is not attack, it is distraction. Distraction dulls sensitivity. Distraction delays obedience. Distraction causes people to miss divine timing while assuming they still have room to adjust later. But there are moments when later is no longer an option. There are windows God opens that do not remain open indefinitely. This is why urgency matters. When God marks time, he is inviting alignment. He is calling his people to shift posture, adjust focus, and recalibrate priorities. This is not a season to drift spiritually. This is not a season to negotiate obedience. This is not a season to assume tomorrow will give you what today is demanding. Heaven is leaning forward. The spirit realm is active. Assignments are being issued. Transitions are forming. And the question of this hour is not whether God is moving. The question is whether his people are paying attention. Urgency is not pressure, it is precision. It is God's way of saying that what you do now carries more weight than what you do later. Because timing is everything in the kingdom, and obedience outside of timing can still result in delay. This is why this moment matters. This is why this season is different. This is why the Spirit keeps saying, watch, listen, prepare. Because before December 20 is not about fear, it is about readiness. It is about recognizing that heaven has signaled a shift, and only those who discern the hour will move with it. One thing I need you to understand clearly is this: when God issues a warning, it is never an act of cruelty, it is an act of mercy. Judgment comes without notice, but mercy always announces itself. Mercy gives you time to adjust. Mercy gives you space to repent. Mercy gives you an opportunity to realign before consequences arrive uninvited. God does not warn because he wants to scare his people. He warns because he wants to spare them. He sees what is forming ahead, and his love refuses to let you walk into danger uninformed. A warning is heaven's way of saying, I care too much about you to let you continue unaware. Silence would be abandonment. Warning is proof of involvement. I've learned in my own journey that the moments God corrected me most strongly were the moments he was protecting me most deeply. There were times when his instructions felt restrictive, when his warnings felt uncomfortable, when his corrections challenged my preferences. But looking back, I can see clearly that every warning saved me from a loss I didn't yet understand. Mercy speaks before consequence. Mercy interrupts patterns before they become prisons. Mercy calls you out before damage sets in. And this is what God is doing now, interrupting before impact, calling attention before collapse, correcting direction before destruction. Many people misunderstand divine warnings because they interpret them emotionally instead of spiritually. They hear warning and assume rejection. They hear correction and assume condemnation. But God does not condemn what he intends to preserve. He does not correct what he plans to discard. If God is warning you, it is because your future still matters to him. This warning is not about punishment. It is about positioning. It is not about fear. It is about foresight. God is extending grace by exposing areas that need adjustment now rather than allowing them to become disasters later. What feels uncomfortable now would have been unbearable later. And here is the critical part: mercy has a window. Grace gives opportunity, but it also requires response. A warning ignored does not cancel consequence, it simply postpones awareness. God gives warnings so that obedience can rewrite outcomes. Right now, God is giving his people the gift of insight. He is shining light on attitudes, habits, relationships, compromises, and patterns that can no longer be carried forward. Not because he wants to shame you, but because he wants to shield you. Not because he wants to limit you, but because he wants to protect what he is about to release. This warning is mercy in motion. It is love with urgency. It is grace with boundaries. It is God saying, I am giving you time. Use it wisely. What many people fail to recognize is that chaos is often the language of transition. When God is about to shift a season, he allows pressure to expose what can no longer remain the same. The shaking you feel is not random, it is revelatory. It reveals what is stable and what is fragile. It reveals what is rooted and what is merely resting on the surface. Right now, many are experiencing resistance where there used to be ease, delays where there used to be flow, tension where there used to be peace. And the mistake is assuming that something has gone wrong. But very often, resistance is a sign that something is about to change. Pressure increases when movement is imminent. Friction shows up when alignment is being demanded. Before every significant shift in scripture, there was disruption. Before Israel left Egypt, the pressure intensified. Before Elijah called down fire, the drought worsened. Before Jesus went to the cross, betrayal surfaced. The shaking is not evidence of defeat, it is evidence of transition. God allows instability to confront complacency. He permits disruption to interrupt routine. He lets the ground tremble so his people stop building on assumptions and start standing on instruction. When everything feels uncertain, it is because certainty must now come from him and not from circumstances. Some of what feels like spiritual warfare is actually spiritual invitation. God is asking, will you move when I signal, or will you cling to what feels familiar? Because shifts require release. You cannot carry old patterns into new dimensions. You cannot walk into what's next holding onto what God is trying to shake loose. The danger of this moment is misinterpretation, calling the shaking an attack instead of a summons. When God is transitioning you, he will often unsettle what once brought comfort. He will disrupt routines that no longer serve purpose. He will allow frustration to surface where stagnation has settled. This is why discernment is critical now. Not everything breaking down is meant to be rebuilt. Not everything that ends is meant to be recovered. Some things are concluding because their assignment has expired. Some doors are closing because they led to a season God has already finished. The shaking is separating weight from worth. It is exposing where faith has become habit and where obedience has become optional. It is revealing whether dependence has been placed on God or on systems, people, or consistency. When systems fail, it forces clarity about source. God is not shaking you to scare you. He is shaking you to shift you. He is not disrupting your peace. He is redefining it. Peace in this season will not come from stability around you, but from alignment within you. If you pay attention, the shaking will guide you. It will point out what needs to be adjusted, surrendered, reordered, or removed. It will force decisions that delay has avoided. It will press urgency into areas where procrastination once lived. This is the shaking before the shift, the moment when heaven rearranges earth so that purpose can move forward without obstruction. This is where it becomes deeply personal, because shifts don't just happen around you, they demand something from you. Seasons change whether you're ready or not, but only those who are aligned survive the transition with clarity and authority. God is not asking general questions right now. He is asking specific ones, and He is asking them of you. Alignment is not about intention, it is about examination. It is about taking an honest look at your life and asking whether your habits match your prayers, whether your obedience supports your declarations, whether your daily decisions are compatible with where you are asking God to take you. Many want the promise, but few are willing to undergo the preparation. I've discovered that God will never advance what is misaligned. He will pause it. He will press it. He will expose it, because elevation without alignment creates collapse later. What you tolerate now can disqualify you later. What you ignore now can sabotage you in the next season. This is why God is dealing with details right now. Relationships that drain your spiritual focus, patterns that weaken your discipline, compromises that seem small but have grown comfortable. He is not nitpicking, He is protecting you. He is not restricting you, He is preserving what He placed inside you. Some people are praying for survival, but survival in this season is not about endurance. It is about adjustment. It's about knowing what to release, what to end, what to confront, and what to realign. You cannot keep everything and move forward. Every transition requires a decision. God is asking, can I trust you with what comes next? Can He trust your character to match your calling? Can He trust your discipline to support your destiny? Can He trust your obedience when instruction conflicts with comfort? Because where God is taking you will demand more accuracy, more accountability, and more authority than where you have been. Casual obedience will not survive the next level. Half-hearted commitment will not sustain the weight of what is coming. Alignment determines longevity. Alignment determines protection. Alignment determines whether you thrive in the shift or struggle through it. This is not about perfection, it is about positioning. God is repositioning His people so that when the transition completes, they are not scrambling to catch up, but standing ready to move. This is the moment where inner order matters more than outer appearance, where private obedience outweighs public success, where unseen discipline carries more weight than visible achievement. God is recalibrating lives quietly so that they can stand firmly when the shift becomes visible. Because what is coming will reward those who were willing to adjust before they were forced to. What many people don't realize is that authority in the kingdom is not something you claim, it is something you activate. Heaven does not respond to titles, noise, or ambition. Heaven responds to obedience. Power follows alignment the way shadow follows substance. When your life lines up with God's instruction, authority shows up without announcement. I have seen this over and over again. People praying for power while resisting discipline, asking for favor while ignoring instruction, decreeing outcomes while avoiding obedience. But spiritual authority is never released through words alone. It is released through surrender. What you obey determines what you are authorized to command. God is not withholding power. He is waiting for alignment. The moment obedience becomes consistent, authority becomes evident. Things that once resisted you begin to move. Doors that stayed shut begin to open. Confusion lifts, opposition weakens, not because you became louder, but because you became aligned. This is why God is emphasizing obedience now, not partial obedience, not delayed obedience, not obedience when it's convenient, but immediate, precise obedience. Because where He is taking you will require spiritual authority that cannot be faked. The next season will expose who is operating from position and who is operating from permission. When alignment is present, heaven backs your steps. You don't have to force outcomes, you walk into them. You don't have to fight battles unnecessarily. Many conflicts dissolve when authority is activated. Obedience doesn't just protect you, it empowers you. Some of you have been feeling spiritually restrained, as if something is capped over your life. It's not because God has limited you, it's because alignment is still being established. Authority cannot function where disorder remains. God is a God of order, and order is the environment where power flows freely. This is why small acts of obedience matter right now. Ending what God told you to end, starting what God told you to start, saying no where He said no, even when it costs you approval, saying yes where He said yes, even when it stretches you. These are not minor decisions, they are activation points. Obedience sharpens discernment. Obedience strengthens confidence. Obedience positions you to speak and see results follow. When your life is aligned, your prayers carry weight. Your declarations carry force, and your presence carries influence. Authority in this season will not come from charisma or exposure. It will come from consecration. And those who choose obedience now will walk into the next phase with clarity, momentum, and a level of spiritual authority that makes room for them without struggle. There comes a moment when instruction must turn into action, when insight must become movement, when what God has revealed demands a response that cannot be postponed. This is that moment. God has spoken. He has warned. He has exposed. Now He is watching to see who will move. The danger of this hour is hesitation. Delayed obedience feels harmless, but in critical moments it becomes costly. Windows in the spirit open and close, and those who wait for perfect conditions often find themselves standing outside opportunities that required immediate response. God is not asking for readiness tomorrow. He is calling for decisiveness now. This is the time to act intentionally, not emotionally, to move with clarity, not panic, to obey with confidence, not fear. Action in this season is not about dramatic gestures. It is about deliberate steps taken in alignment with divine instruction. The smallest obedient movement can trigger the largest spiritual shift. God is calling His people to decree, not from desire, but from alignment. Declarations carry power when they are rooted in obedience. Words spoken out of alignment echo without effect, but words spoken from a positioned life move heaven and alter outcomes. Authority gives voice weight, and movement is required. Faith that remains stationary becomes frustration. Revelation that is not acted upon becomes condemnation. God never reveals something so you can admire it. He reveals it so you can move in it. Action is the evidence that belief is alive. This is not the time to revisit old debates or rehearse old excuses. This is not the time to seek additional confirmation when God has already spoken clearly. This is not the time to wait for consensus. Obedience rarely comes with unanimous approval. Before the window closes, God is calling for courage. Courage to end what He said end. Courage to confront what He exposed. Courage to step forward when comfort urges you to stay still. Courage to move while others hesitate. What you do now will determine what opens next. Movement unlocks momentum. Obedience releases acceleration. Alignment activates favor. Those who move in this moment will find that God meets them in motion, supplying clarity as they go, strengthening them as they step, and confirming His word through results. This is the hour where faith must leave intention and take form, where obedience must move from thought to action, where instruction must be honored with response. And those who act before the deadline will step into the next season not scrambling, not catching up, but already positioned for what God has prepared. And as you move, understand this: God is not asking for perfection. He is demanding posture. He is not looking for flawless people. He is looking for yielded ones, those who are willing to say, Lord, whatever you say, however you say it, whenever you say it, I will respond, because responsiveness is the currency of this season. What God is doing now will expose who is spiritually flexible and who is spiritually rigid. Some people will miss what God is doing because they are too attached to how He used to do it. Familiarity has become the enemy of movement. Tradition has become a hiding place. Comfort has become a delay tactic. And God is saying, I am doing something new, and it will require new posture. This is not the season to carry excess weight emotionally, spiritually, relationally. Anything that slows your obedience will eventually sabotage your assignment. God is lightening loads so speed can increase. He is simplifying lives so clarity can sharpen. He is narrowing focus so precision can replace distraction. Some of you are feeling an internal restlessness you can't explain. That is not anxiety, it is summons. It is heaven signaling that where you are standing is no longer where you are supposed to remain. The discomfort is intentional. The unease is strategic. God is shifting you out of familiarity and into function. And here is the weight of this moment. Neutrality is no longer an option. Silence is no longer safe. Indecision is no longer harmless. This hour requires response. Not everyone will respond, and that is why not everyone will move forward. Transition always separates the responsive from the resistant. God is marking those who move when he speaks, not those who talk the loudest, not those who appear the most spiritual, but those who quietly obey without needing applause, explanation, or permission. These are the ones he entrusts with influence in the next phase. As you step, you may not have all the details, but you have enough direction. As you move, you may not feel fully ready, but readiness follows obedience. Momentum is released after movement, not before it. God does not give clarity to spectators, he gives it to participants. This is a defining moment, a separating moment, a positioning moment. And those who choose obedience now will discover that God does not just meet them in the next season, he goes ahead of them, preparing outcomes they could not have produced on their own. And as you continue forward, understand that this movement will not always be comfortable and it will not always be affirmed by those around you. Obedience in critical moments often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. There will be people who don't understand your urgency, who question your decisions, who assume you are overreacting, but what they cannot hear is the instruction that was given directly to you. God does not speak to crowds the same way he speaks to individuals. What he requires from you may not be required from someone else, and comparison will only confuse your assignment. This is why discernment must stay sharp in this season. You cannot afford to outsource your obedience or borrow conviction from someone who hasn't heard what you've heard. As you move, resistance may increase not because you are wrong, but because alignment disrupts environments that thrived on your delay. When you shift, systems adjust. When you obey, atmospheres respond. Some doors will close not to punish you, but to prevent you from retreating. Some relationships will change not because you failed, but because the season expired. God is strengthening your resolve because what he is entrusting to you next will require endurance. This is not a sprint, it is a strategic advance. Every step you take in obedience is building spiritual muscle, sharpening discernment, and reinforcing trust between you and heaven. Obedience trains you to hear more clearly, move more confidently, and stand more firmly. There will be moments when you are tempted to slow down, to revisit old options, to wonder if staying put would have been easier. But ease is not the goal, effectiveness is. God is not optimizing your comfort, he is maximizing your impact. What feels demanding now is developing capacity for what is coming. And here is the assurance that anchors this movement. You are not walking ahead of God, you are walking with him. He is not catching up to your obedience, he is guiding it. Every step taken in alignment is covered by grace, reinforced by wisdom, and sustained by divine supply. What unfolds next will not be accidental. It will be the result of decisions made in this window, choices executed under instruction, and movement initiated before clarity was complete. This is how faith operates, step by step, instruction by instruction, obedience unlocking understanding as you go. And as you continue to move, you will realize that what once felt urgent now feels ordered. What once felt heavy now feels purposeful. And what once felt uncertain now carries quiet confidence because alignment has shifted from effort into rhythm and obedience has become your new normal. And as alignment settles into rhythm, something else begins to happen quietly, but unmistakably. You start to see differently. What once confused you no longer carries the same weight. What once demanded emotional energy no longer pulls at you the same way. Vision sharpens when obedience becomes consistent. Discernment increases when distraction decreases. God begins to reorder your perspective. You no longer react to every disturbance because you understand that not every noise deserves your attention. You stop chasing confirmation because obedience has already anchored your confidence. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not assigned to understand you because clarity has replaced the need for approval. This is where spiritual maturity shows up, not in how loudly you speak, but in how steadily you move. You begin to recognize when silence is wisdom, when restraint is strength, when patience is strategy. God trains his people in this season to move with intention, not impulse. You may notice that conversations change, priorities shift, desires recalibrate. What once excited you may no longer satisfy you, and what once intimidated you may no longer move you. That is not loss. That is refinement. God is aligning your appetite with your assignment. And in this space, faith becomes less emotional and more decisive. You don't need constant reassurance because obedience has produced evidence. You don't need to rush outcomes because alignment has produced trust. You are learning that timing is not something you force, it is something you respect. God begins to entrust you with greater responsibility in this posture, not because you asked for more, but because you proved faithful with what he already gave you. Expansion follows stewardship, increase follows order, influence follows alignment. There will be moments when you sense acceleration, when doors open with unusual ease, when provision appears without struggle, when clarity arrives at just the right time. These moments are not coincidence, they are confirmation. They signal that you are moving in rhythm with heaven rather than against it. And even when challenges arise, they feel different now. They no longer threaten your peace because your peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. Alignment has anchored you internally. You are not unbothered because nothing is happening. You are unshaken because you know who is directing your steps. This is the quiet strength of obedience, the kind that doesn't need applause, doesn't demand explanation, and doesn't fear disruption. It carries weight because it is rooted, ordered, and sustained by a confidence that comes from knowing you are moving exactly when and where God instructed.